Welcome to Commander Lieutenants, where I take a recently printed precon, take the secondary commander out of it, and build a deck, all for under $100. I've chosen the Abzan Enchantment precon from Commander Masters, and the secondary commander is Narcy Fable Singer. Abzan and 1 for a 3/3 human bard with lifelink. Whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card. Whenever the final chapter of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life where X is that saga's mana value. And sagas do sacrifice themselves at the end, so you will draw a card when your sagas finish. This commander is really unique. Other than Tom Bombadil, I don't think there's another proper saga commander. So she seemed like a ton of fun to brew around, because that first line, whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card, is really good. I'm going to start with the mana base. So for the most part, it's just a budget Abzan mana base, with a few special additions. Karn's Bastion is really great in a saga deck because you get to proliferate your sagas, putting more counters on them, letting you get to that final chapter sooner and drain your opponents with Narcy. And Nesting Grounds is another really weird land that can be very good in a saga deck. It lets you move a counter from target permanent to another target permanent. So you can move a lore counter from one saga to another, allowing you to speed up one of the sagas and also have a different saga continue to hit the second or first ability multiple times. Removing a lore counter from a saga does not trigger the previous ability again. It's only when the counter is placed. But if you had one lore counter on it, and you removed that to 0, you could get the first effect multiple times. Nesting Grounds in tandem with something like Elspeth Conquers Death is really strong, since you could just repeatedly exile target permanent an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater, over and over again every turn. Now, I mentioned that the draw card when you sacrifice an enchantment ability on Narcy is really powerful, and it works really well with the seals. So Seal of Cleansing or Seal of Doom are awesome cards here, because not only are they instant speed removal after you play them, but you'll draw a card when each one is sacrificed. And also, there are weird cards like Oratog, which lets you sacrifice an enchantment to give it +2/+2. If you have Oratog, your commander, and some enchantments in play, you can use Oratog to sacrifice an enchantment whenever you want to just draw a card. This is really great because if somebody wants to remove your enchantments, you can just instead draw a card out of it. Or if for whatever reason you didn't want one of the effects of your sagas to trigger, this could stop that. Oratog also works really well with cards like Aspect of Mongoose. Aspect of Mongoose gives a creature Shroud essentially, and when it's put into the graveyard from play, it goes back to your hand. So with Aspect of Mongoose, your commander in Oratog, you can sacrifice Aspect to draw a card, it goes back to your hand, play Aspect of Mongoose again, trigger all your enchantresses, sacrifice Aspect to Oratog, draw another card, etc, etc, etc. This kind of sacrifice loop and enchantment effect is really powerful. If you wanted to go more down that route, you could play Thermatog, which also lets you sacrifice enchantments, and also Demon of Fate's Design. Demon of Fate's Design is a really good card. It just didn't make the cut for budget reasons, but if you happen to have it, or you want to go a little bit over the budget, this would be one of the first cards I add. The deck has a couple of Enchantress effects, obviously. Cards like Sithis, Harvest Hand, or Eidolon of Blossoms are both great cards that just draw cards when you play enchantments, and this deck is filled with enchantments. The deck then has some pillow fort effects like Revenge of Ravens and Ghostly Prison. These are just to stop people from swinging in at you. There aren't too many creatures in the deck, although there are a decent amount that make tokens, like Daxos the Returned and Ajani's Chosen. So pillow fort effects and token producers let you stay alive and stop people from just attacking you all out, while your commander drains your opponents as you trigger your sagas. My list has a total of 11 sagas, which is about all the best ones in Abzan colors. For the most part, sagas aren't super powerful, so I leaned a little bit heavier into the sacrificing enchantment theme with all the omens. But War in Heaven is a great finisher, allowing you to reanimate a bunch of your opponent's creatures. The Eldest Reborn is a really powerful value engine that makes your opponent sacrifice creatures and discard cards and then steals a creature. And then the deck has tons of great recursion. Brilliant Restoration and Spirit Sister's Call are both good ways to get your enchantments back. Brilliant Restoration will essentially finish the game off for you in the late game when you put, 6, 7 sagas into play. You can really deal a ton of damage with your commander. And Spirit Sister's Call lets you sacrifice a permanent of a specific type, and then get back one of the same type. Now, with Daxos, who creates enchantment creatures, you can then sacrifice a Daxos token to get back a Saga, which, sacrificing enchantment, triggers your commander, draw a card. In terms of board wipes, there's some really great sacrifice ones as well. Tragic Arrogance is a really powerful card. For each player, you choose a permanent that player controls, which is an artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker, and then they sacrifice all other non-land permanents. So your opponents get to keep their worst creature, artifact, enchantment, because you get to choose, and then for you, you just choose your commander and the enchantment you want to stick around, and when you sacrifice the rest of your enchantments in this board wipe and all your enchantment creatures, you get to then draw a card for each of them. Cataclysmic Gearhulk also works in a similar vein, where it forces everyone to sacrifice down to one enchantment and creature and artifact, but for you, that's often a lot of card draw. The deck then has just some Saga support. Cards like Satsuki the Living Lore can bring your Sagas back to your hand from the graveyard, and Search for Glory lets you search your library for a specific Saga. So for this list, I wanted to keep it at, sub $100 on Card Kingdom. This way, you'll get free shipping from Card Kingdom if you pay $35 or more. If you were to get this whole list on TCG Player, it would probably be like more than $100 because shipping from different sellers. But if you want to upgrade this past the budget, on Mox Field, I have a few cards in the considering section. These are things that I wanted to put in the list, but didn't really make the cut, mostly for budget reasons, or I wasn't 100% certain how well they would do. Some of the first things I would add is Hall of Heliod's Generosity. This is a really, really powerful land that lets you get enchantments back from the graveyard. Also, Pernicious Deed. This is a really powerful board wipe that's on an enchantment, so when you sacrifice it, it'll have you draw a card. I might just replace Wrath of God with it, but Pernicious Deed is like $7. There are a few other cards in here that are just good enchantment cards in general, and you could go beyond the considering list. If you have like a Demonic Tutor and Fetch Lands and Dual Lands and Vamp Tutors and all that stuff, like those are also all great in the deck. I was just trying to keep it within the 100. I've put a link to the full deck list in the description. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Do you like this commander? I'd love to hear any other ideas about how to build her. And do you find yourself often gravitating towards one of the secondary commanders in a precon? Would you like to see more videos like this? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so very much for watching. Subscribe for more.